He carried everything he owned in 2 worn duffel bags and a heart heavy with hope. She had a private jet waiting on the tarmac and twin daughters who had never known what it meant to wait for anything. When a struggling single father stopped to help 2 lost little girls in the busiest airport in America, he thought he was just doing what any decent person would do. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. But what he didn't know was who their mother really was, and by morning, his phone would ring with an offer that would change not just his life, but the lives of everyone he'd ever tried to help. What happened next proved that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest storms of change. If you believe that good people still exist in this world, and that one moment of compassion can rewrite an entire destiny, then this story is for you. The fluorescent lights of Denver International Airport hummed with the kind of sterile persistence that made even the most seasoned travelers feel slightly hollow inside. Chen pulled his worn baseball cap lower over his eyes as he navigated through the sea of rolling suitcases and hurried conversations. The 2 duffel bags slung across his shoulders contained everything that mattered to him now. Work clothes, a few tools, his certification papers, and a framed photo of his daughter Lily that he kept wrapped in an old t-shirt to prevent the glass from breaking. 3 months ago, Marcus had been a project manager for a construction company in Seattle. He'd had a steady salary, a small apartment with a view of the Sound, and a routine that revolved around weekend visits with 8-year-old Lily. The divorce had been finalized 2 years prior, and while it wasn't the life he'd planned, it was stable, predictable, safe. Then the company went under without warning. The CEO had been embezzling funds for years, and when the truth came out, 230 employees found themselves unemployed overnight. Marcus had burned through his savings in 6 weeks, lost the apartment in 8, and was now headed to Phoenix with nothing but a promise of work from his cousin Danny, who ran a small roofing business in the desert. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was flying to start over, while his ex-wife Jennifer fought him in court for reduced visitation rights, claiming his unemployment made him an unstable influence on their daughter. The lawyer's fees had eaten up the last of his emergency fund, and the one-way ticket to Phoenix had been purchased with his final credit card, the one that was probably already maxed out. Marcus checked his phone for the 3rd time in 10 minutes, gate B47. His connecting flight to Phoenix didn't leave for another 2 hours, which gave him plenty of time to find a quiet corner, eat the peanut butter sandwich he'd packed that morning, and try not to think about how different his life had looked just 90 days ago. The airport was particularly crowded for a Thursday afternoon in October. Marcus threaded his way through clusters of business travelers typing furiously on laptops, families corralling children loaded down with Disney merchandise, and college students sprawled across gate areas with textbooks and energy drinks. The background noise was a constant hum of announcements, rolling wheels, and conversations in a dozen different languages. He was passing gate B23 when he first heard the crying. It wasn't the typical airport distress of an overtired toddler or a frustrated teenager. This was different, quieter, but somehow more desperate. The kind of crying that comes from being truly lost, not just inconvenienced. Marcus slowed his pace and scanned the seating area near the gate. At first, he didn't see anything unusual. Then tucked into a corner near a charging station, he spotted them. 2 little girls, identical twins who couldn't have been more than 6 years old, were huddled together on a chair that was too big for both of them. They were dressed in matching navy blue coats with silver buttons, the kind of expensive clothing that suggested privilege and careful attention to detail. Their dark hair was pulled back in identical ponytails tied with silk ribbons, and their small hands clutched matching pink backpacks decorated with unicorns. But despite their pristine appearance, both girls were crying with the quiet desperation of children who had been taught not to make scenes but couldn't contain their fear any longer. Marcus stopped walking. He glanced around, looking for adults who might belong to these children. The gate area was full of travelers, but no one seemed to be paying attention to the twins. No one was approaching them or looking concerned about their obvious distress. He stood there for a moment, uncertain. In today's world, approaching someone else's children could be misinterpreted, and Marcus couldn't afford any complications that might interfere with his fresh start in Phoenix. But as he watched, one of the girls wiped her nose with the back of her hand, and the gesture was so utterly vulnerable that he found himself walking toward them before he'd consciously made the decision. Marcus approached slowly, keeping his movements gentle and non-threatening. When he was about 10 feet away, he crouched down to their eye level and spoke softly. "Hey there," he said, his voice warm but respectful. "Are you two okay?" Both girls looked up at him with identical, tear-streaked faces and enormous brown eyes. They were definitely twins, so similar that Marcus couldn't tell them apart, except for a small beauty mark on the left girl's cheek. "We can't find our mom," the girl with the beauty mark whispered. Her voice so quiet, Marcus had to lean closer to hear her. "We were supposed to meet her at the gate," the other twin added, "but we got confused about which one." Marcus felt his heart squeeze. "What's your mum's name? Maybe we can have her paged." The twins exchanged a glance, and Marcus caught something odd in their expressions. Not just fear, but uncertainty, as if they weren't sure how to answer the question. "Her name is Victoria," the first girl said finally. "Victoria Sterling." "And what are your names?" Marcus asked gently. "I'm Emma," said the girl with the beauty mark. "And this is Sophie." "It's very nice to meet you, Emma and Sophie. I'm Marcus." He glanced around again, still searching for any adults who might be looking for these children. "Do you remember what gate you were supposed to meet your mom at?" Sophie shook her head, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "There were so many people, and all the gates looked the same. We thought it was B35, but she wasn't there, and then we couldn't remember how to get back." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Okay, let's call airport security. They can help us find your mom and make sure you get to the right place." "No!" Emma said quickly, grabbing his arm with a small hand. "Please don't call security." The urgency in her voice surprised Marcus. "Why not? They're here to help." The twins looked at each other again, having one of those silent conversations that only siblings can have. Finally, Emma spoke. "Our mum said we should never talk to security people. She said they ask too many questions." That struck Marcus as odd, but he didn't want to frighten the girls further by pushing the issue. "Okay, no security then, but we need to find your mum. Are you traveling alone with her?" "Yes," Sophie said. "It's just us. We don't have a dad." The simple statement hit Marcus harder than he expected. These two little girls, dressed in their expensive coats and clutching their designer backpacks, were alone in one of the busiest airports in the country, just like he was alone in a different way. "Do you know your mom's phone number?" he asked. Emma nodded and recited a number with a 212 area code, New York. Marcus pulled up the number on his phone and dialed. The call went straight to voicemail without even ringing. The message was brief and professional. "You've reached Victoria Sterling. Please leave a message." "Hi, Ms. Sterling," Marcus said after the beep. "My name is Marcus Chen, and I'm here at Denver International Airport with Emma and Sophie. They're safe, but they're looking for you. We're at gate B23. Please call me back at this number as soon as you get this message." He hung up and looked at the twins, who were watching him with a mixture of hope and anxiety. The call went to voicemail, but I left a message, he told them. "I'm sure she'll call back soon. In the meantime, why don't we see if we can figure out where you're supposed to be?" Marcus sat down in the chair next to theirs, making sure to maintain appropriate distance while still being able to talk to them easily. Do you remember anything about the gate you were supposed to meet at? Was it a letter and number like this? 1? It started with B, Emma said, but we can't remember the number. And do you know where you're flying to? Home, Sophie said simply. Where's home? Another exchange of glances between the twins. New York, Emma said, but there was something hesitant in her voice. Marcus nodded. Okay, that helps. Most of the flights to New York leave from the B gates, so we're in the right area at least. He checked his phone again. No return call yet. Are you too hungry? Thirsty? We might be here for a little while until your mom calls back. Both. Girls nodded shyly. Marcus glanced at his watch. He had 90 minutes before his own flight, and his cousin Danny was expecting him in Phoenix that evening. But looking at these two scared little girls, Marcus knew he couldn't just walk away and hope someone else would help them. There's a food court not far from here, he said. Why don't we go get something to eat, and then we can come back and wait for your mom to call? Are you sure it's okay? Emma asked. Mom says we're not supposed to go places with strangers. Your mom is absolutely right, Marcus said seriously. But right now, I'm trying to help you find her, and you shouldn't. Stay here alone. Tell you what, we'll stay where there are lots of people around. And if you feel uncomfortable at any point, you can ask any airport employee for help. Deal? The twins considered this for a moment. Then Sophie nodded. Deal. As they walked toward the food court, Marcus found himself studying the girls more closely. Despite their obvious fear and confusion, they carried themselves with a certain poise that seemed unusual for 6-year-olds. Their clothes, while child-appropriate, were clearly expensive. The coats alone probably cost more than Marcus spent on clothing in 6 months. Their shoes were pristine leather, their backpacks were genuine designer pieces, and even their hair ties looked like they came from somewhere more upscale than a drugstore. But beyond the material indicators of wealth, there was something else about them that caught his attention. They spoke with a vocabulary and sentence structure that seemed advanced for their age, and they had an awareness of their surroundings that suggested they'd traveled extensively. The food court was busy, but not overwhelming. Marcus led them to a table in the center of the space where they could see all the entrances and exits. What would you like to eat? He asked. We're not really hungry, Emma said politely. When was the last time you ate? Marcus asked gently. The twins looked at each other uncertainly. This morning, Sophie said, but it sounded more like a question than a statement. Marcus frowned. It was after 3 in the afternoon. You haven't eaten since this morning? We had juice on the plane, Emma said, and some crackers. What plane? I thought you were meeting your mom here. Another one of those silent twin conversations. We came from different places, Sophie said finally. We were visiting our grandmother, and Mom was visiting friends. We were all supposed to meet here and fly home together. The story was plausible, but something about the way the girls told, it made Marcus wonder if there were details they weren't sharing, or perhaps details they'd been told not to share. Well, you definitely need to eat something, he said. What sounds good? He ended up buying them chicken nuggets and apple slices from one of the chain restaurants, along with chocolate milk and a bag of cookies for later. For himself, he bought a coffee and a sandwich, mentally calculating how much of his remaining cash the meal had cost. As they ate, Marcus tried to learn more about the twins without making them feel like they were being interrogated. He discovered that they loved books, particularly stories about animals and adventure. Sophie was learning to play piano, and Emma was taking dance classes. They had been to more countries than Marcus could name, and they spoke about traveling, the way other children talked about going to the playground. Do you travel a lot with your mom? He asked. Sometimes, Emma said, but usually we go with Nana. Is that your grandmother? Both girls nodded. Nana takes us lots of places, Sophie said. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Last month we went to London to see the changing of the guard. Marcus whistled softly. That sounds amazing. What was your favorite part? The horses, both girls said simultaneously, then giggled. It was the first time Marcus had seen them. Truly smiled since he'd found them, and the transformation was remarkable. Their whole faces lit up, and for a moment they looked like typical 6-year-olds instead of two small people carrying some invisible burden. His phone buzzed with a text message, and Marcus felt his heart sink when he saw it was from Danny, not Victoria Sterling. Flight delayed? The message read, "Your plane should have landed by now." Marcus quickly typed back, "Delayed at Denver. We'll call you soon." He checked the time. His flight to Phoenix was supposed to board in 45 minutes. Still no call from the twins' mother. "Emma and Sophie," he said gently, "I need to tell you something. I have a flight to catch soon, and I'm getting worried that your mom hasn't called back yet. I think we should ask someone from the airline to help us." The fear that flashed across both girls' faces was immediate and intense. "Please don't leave us," Emma whispered. "We'll be good," Sophie added quickly. "We won't cause any trouble." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. These little girls were terrified of being alone, but they were equally terrified of involving airport authorities. He thought about his ex-wife's accusations that he was unstable, about the job waiting for him in Phoenix, about the fresh start he desperately needed. Then he looked at Emma and Sophie, who were watching him with the kind of trust that could break a person's heart. "I'm not going to leave you," he heard himself say. "We're going to figure this out together." He pulled out his phone and dialed the airline to change his flight to the next available departure. The change fee ate up most of his remaining cash, but as he watched the relief wash over the twins' faces, Marcus knew he'd made the right choice. "Now," he said, settling back into his chair, "let's try calling your mom again." This time, when he dialed Victoria Sterling's number, it rang twice before going to voicemail. Progress, Marcus thought, even if minimal. "Miss Sterling, this is Marcus Chen again. I'm still with Emma and Sophie at Denver International Airport. It's been over an hour since my first message. The girls are safe and fed, but they're getting worried. Please call me as soon as possible." After hanging up, Marcus turned his attention back to the twins. "While we wait, why don't you tell me more about your mom? What does she do for work?" The question seemed to stump them. Emma and Sophie looked at each other with that same uncertain expression Marcus had noticed before. "She's busy a lot," Sophie said finally. "She has meetings," Emma added. "Lots of meetings." "What kind of meetings?" Another pause. "Important ones," Emma said, as if that explained everything. Marcus was beginning to suspect that these 6-year-olds didn't really know what their mother did for a living, which wasn't particularly unusual. Most children their age had only vague understanding of their parents' careers. But combined with everything else about this situation, it added another layer of mystery. "Does your mom work in New York?" he asked. "Sometimes," Sophie said, "but also other places." "She travels for work?" Both girls nodded enthusiastically. "All the time," Emma said. "She has to go to different cities and countries. That must be hard, having her away so much." "We usually go with her," Sophie said, "or we stay with Nana." Marcus was starting to build a picture of a wealthy family where the mother traveled extensively for business, taking the twins along when possible and leaving them with their grandmother when necessary. It explained the girls' sophistication and their comfort with travel, but it didn't explain why Victoria Sterling wasn't answering her phone or why the twins seemed so afraid of involving airport security. His phone rang, and Marcus felt a surge of relief when he saw an unknown number with a 212 area code. "Marcus Chen," he answered. "Mr. Chen." The voice was crisp, professional, with a slight accent Marcus couldn't place. "This is Victoria Sterling. I understand you're with my daughters." "Yes, ma'am. Emma and Sophie are safe. They were lost and couldn't find you." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Lost? That's impossible. They were supposed to wait at gate B31. Marcus looked at the twins, who were listening intently to his side of the conversation. They said they got confused about which gate and couldn't find their way back. "Where are you now?" "We're in the food court near gate B23. The girls were hungry, so I got them something to eat." Another pause, longer this time. "Mr. Chen, I appreciate your help, but I need to ask, who are you? Why did you get involved?" The question was reasonable, but there was something in Victoria Sterling's tone that made Marcus feel defensive. "I'm just someone who saw two scared little girls and wanted to help. I found them crying and alone. And you're not." She seemed to be searching for the right words. "You're not affiliated with any organizations, media, law enforcement?" "No, ma'am. I'm just a regular person trying to catch a flight to Phoenix." Marcus heard what sounded like a sigh of relief. "I see. Well, I'm grateful for your kindness. Can you bring the girls to gate B31? "I'm waiting there now." "Of course. We'll be there in a few minutes." As Marcus hung up, he noticed that Emma and Sophie looked more anxious than relieved. "Was that really Mom?" Emma asked quietly. The question surprised Marcus. You think it was?" "It sounded like her," Sophie said slowly, "but she seemed different." Marcus studied their faces. "Different how?" "But she wasn't worried enough," Emma said, with the kind of insight that seemed far too mature for a 6-year-old. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the airport's air conditioning. "What do you mean?" "When we get lost at home, she gets really upset," Sophie explained. "She asks lots of questions and wants to know exactly what happened and if we're hurt. But this time she just wanted to know where we are," Emma added. Marcus looked down at these two little girls, who were apparently more perceptive than most. Adults he knew. "Maybe she was just relieved that you're safe," he suggested, but even as he said it, he felt doubt creeping in. The walk to gate B31 took about 10 minutes, weaving through crowds of travelers and around construction barriers where the airport was being renovated. As they got closer to their destination, Marcus noticed that the twins were walking more slowly, as if they were reluctant to reach their mother. Gate B31 was busy with passengers waiting for a flight to Los Angeles. Marcus scanned the area, looking for a woman who might be Victoria Sterling. He realized he had no idea what to look for, other than someone who appeared to be the mother of Emma and Sophie. "Do you see your mom?" he asked the twins. Both girls stood on their tiptoes, searching the crowded gate area. "I don't see her," Emma said. "Maybe she's in the bathroom," Sophie suggested, but she didn't sound convinced. Marcus pulled out his phone and called Victoria Sterling's number again. This time, it went straight to voicemail. "That's strange," he murmured. "She said she was here waiting for us." They waited for 15 minutes, with Marcus making 2 more unsuccessful calls to Victoria Sterling's number. The twins grew increasingly agitated, and Marcus found himself feeling more and more uneasy about the entire situation. "Mr. Marcus," Emma said finally, tugging on his sleeve, "I don't think our mom is here." Marcus knelt down to their level. "What do you think we should do?" "Can we stay with you?" Sophie asked, her voice small and hopeful. The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. These 2 little girls who barely knew him, trusted him more than they trusted whatever was supposed to happen when they found their mother. And despite all his logical reasons for walking away, Marcus found that he trusted his instincts about them more than he trusted. The strange phone call from Victoria Sterling. "Yes," he said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "You can stay with me until we figure this out." As they walked away from gate B31, Marcus tried to process what was happening. He was supposed to be starting a new life in Phoenix, not taking responsibility for two lost children whose mother may or may not be who she claimed to be. But something about Emma and Sophie had gotten under his skin in a way that made logical thinking nearly impossible. They found seats in a quieter area of the terminal, and Marcus tried calling Victoria Sterling again. This time, the number was completely disconnected. "The number you have dialed is not in service," the automated message informed him. Marcus stared at his phone in disbelief. The same number that had worked an hour ago was now disconnected. Either Victoria Sterling had deliberately disabled her phone, or someone else had been using it to contact him. "Emma and Sophie," he said carefully, "I need to ask you something important, and I need you to tell me the truth. Is Victoria Sterling really your mother?" The twins looked at each other with that familiar silent communication, and Marcus could practically see them weighing their options. Finally, Emma spoke. "Yes, she's our mom, but what?" "But we've never heard anyone call her Victoria Sterling before," Sophie finished. Marcus felt the last piece of his certainty crumble away. What do people usually call her? "Just Mom," Emma said. "Or Miss V when we're around her work people." "And what's her last name?" "Your last name." Another pause. "We don't really know," Sophie admitted. "We have lots of different last names depending on where we are." Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling the beginning of a headache. These weren't just two lost children. These were two children who seemed to be living under some kind of protection or witness program, or worse, they were being trafficked or kidnapped. The expensive clothes and advanced vocabulary suggested wealth and privilege, but the fear of authorities and the multiple identities suggested something far more complex and potentially dangerous. His phone buzzed with another text from his cousin Danny. "Everything okay? Your flight shows as departed, but you haven't called." Marcus looked at Emma and Sophie, who were watching him with complete trust, and made another decision that would have seemed impossible just hours earlier. "I think," he said slowly, "we need to find out exactly who you two really are." Marcus decided that sitting in the airport trying to solve this mystery wasn't going to get them anywhere. The twins needed somewhere safe and quiet to decompress, and he needed time to think clearly about what was really happening. Denver International Airport had several hotels connected to the terminal, and while it would drain what little money he had left, Marcus knew he couldn't make rational decisions while juggling two scared children in a crowded public space. The airport hotel was exactly what he expected: clean, functional, and expensive. Marcus booked a room with 2 beds using his nearly maxed-out credit card, trying not to think about how he was going to explain this expense to himself later. Emma and Sophie had been unusually quiet during the check-in process, staying close to his sides like small shadows. The room was on the 7th floor with a view of the runways. As soon as they were inside, both girls seemed to relax slightly. They set their pink backpacks on one of the beds and looked around with the careful assessment of people who had stayed in many hotels before. "This is nice," Sophie said politely, running her hand along the smooth comforter. "Much better than the airport," Emma agreed, settling cross-legged on the bed next to their bags. Marcus pulled out the desk chair and sat facing them. "Okay, girls, I think it's time we had a real conversation about what's going on. I want to help you, but I need to understand the truth about your situation." The twins exchanged another one of their wordless communications. Marcus was beginning to realize that they shared an almost telepathic connection, finishing each other's thoughts and making decisions together in ways that went far beyond typical sibling closeness. "We want to tell you," Emma said finally, "but we're not supposed to talk about it with strangers." "I understand that," Marcus said gently, "but I'm not really a stranger anymore, am I? I've fed you. I'm keeping you safe, and I gave up my flight to Phoenix to make sure you're okay. Sometimes rules have to change when circumstances change. Sophie nodded slowly. That makes sense. Marcus leaned forward slightly, keeping his voice calm and reassuring. Let's start with something simple. What are your real names? Emma. And Sophie, Emma said immediately. That part is true. And your last name? The girls looked at each other uncertainly. It changes, Sophie said, depending on where we are and what Mom is doing for work. Can you give me an example? Sometimes we're the Harrison twins, Emma said. Sometimes we're Emma and Sophie Chen. Marcus felt a jolt of surprise. Chen? Like my last name? Both girls nodded. We've been lots of different Chens, Sophie said. Chen, Chang, Jiang, Kim, Park. Mum says it depends on what fits best for each place. The pieces were starting to form a picture that Marcus didn't like. Children with constantly changing identities, expensive clothes, fear of authorities, and a mother who used fake names and phone numbers. It sounded like either witness protection or something much more sinister. Emma and Sophie, he said carefully. Do you know what your mom does for work? She helps people travel, Emma said. She makes sure they get where they need to go. She has lots of planes, Sophie added, and she knows important people all over the world. Marcus felt his eyebrows rise. She has planes? Like she owns them? Lots of them, Emma said matter-of-factly. Big ones and small ones. Some for people and some for cargo. And she's always meeting with pilots and airport people, Sophie continued. She speaks different languages and knows the rules for different countries. A new possibility was emerging, one that Marcus hadn't considered before. Instead of being victims of trafficking or witnesses in protection, Emma and Sophie might be the daughters of someone involved in international business on a massive scale, the kind of business that required constant travel, multiple identities, and extreme privacy. Does your mum own an airline? He asked. The twins tilted their heads in unison, considering the question. We don't know what an airline is exactly, Emma said, but she definitely owns the planes, Sophie said, and the buildings where the planes stay, and lots of people work for her. Marcus pulled out his phone and did a quick search for Victoria Sterling Airlines. Nothing came up. He tried Sterling Airlines and found a small charter company based in Delaware, but the website showed it had been dissolved 3 years ago. Do you know any other names your mum uses for work? He asked. Ms. V, Emma said. Victoria Chen, sometimes. Victoria Park, Victoria Kim. Marcus searched for variations of Victoria with Asian surnames combined with airlines, aviation, and aircraft. Most of the results were irrelevant, but one name kept appearing in business articles and aviation industry news. Victoria Chen, listed as a board member of several international logistics companies. He clicked on a Forbes article from 6 months ago titled The Invisible Titans, Asia's most powerful business leaders you've never heard of. Halfway down the list was Victoria Chen, described as the enigmatic CEO of Pacific Bridge Logistics, a company that controls more international air cargo routes than any other private entity in the world. Marcus read further, his amazement growing with each paragraph. According to the article, Pacific Bridge Logistics owned over 200 aircraft, operated in 47 countries, and generated annual revenues in excess of $8 billion. Victoria Chen herself was estimated to be worth somewhere between $12 and $15 billion, making her one of the wealthiest women in Asia. But what caught Marcus's attention most was a single line near the end of the article. Chen maintains an extremely low public profile and is rarely photographed. Industry insiders describe her as brilliant but obsessively private, particularly regarding her family life. Marcus looked up at Emma and Sophie. who were watching him with patient curiosity. "I think," he said slowly, "your mum might be one of the most powerful people in the aviation industry." "She's important," Emma agreed. "That's why we have to be careful about strangers. And why we can't tell people our real last name," Sophie added. The pieces were clicking into place. Now, Victoria Chen wasn't just wealthy. She controlled a significant portion of international air cargo traffic. That level of business success would require extreme security measures, especially when it came to protecting her children. Emma and Sophie weren't lost or abandoned. They were being hidden. Marcus's phone rang, startling all three of them. The caller ID showed unknown number, and Marcus hesitated before answering. "Marcus Chen," he said cautiously. "Mr. Chen." The voice was different from the woman who had called herself Victoria Sterling earlier. This voice was warmer, more natural, with a slight accent that Marcus now recognized as Korean American. "My name is Victoria Chen. I believe you've been taking care of my daughters." Marcus felt relief wash over him. This voice sounded right in a way the previous call hadn't. "Yes, ma'am. Emma and Sophie are safe. They're with me at the airport. Hotel." "Thank God," Victoria said, and Marcus could hear genuine emotion in her voice. "Mr. Chen, I cannot adequately express my gratitude. When I realized the girls were missing, I was terrified." "They're fine," Marcus assured her, "scared and confused, but physically fine. They said they got separated from you at the airport." There was a pause. "Mr. Chen, I need to be completely honest with you. Emma and Sophie weren't supposed to be at Denver International Airport today. They were supposed to be safe at their school in Connecticut." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "Someone took them," Victoria said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Someone intercepted them during what should have been a routine transfer from their grandmother's house to their boarding school. I've been working with private security and federal authorities to track them down." Marcus looked at the twins, who were listening intently to his side of the conversation. "Ms. Chen, Emma and Sophie seem to think you're their mother and that they were supposed to meet you here." "Someone has been lying to them," Victoria said firmly. "Mr. Chen, I need you to understand something. My daughters are extremely valuable targets for kidnapping, extortion, and worse. The fact that you found them wandering alone in an airport suggests that something went very wrong with whoever took them." The room felt like it was spinning slightly. Marcus sat down heavily on the bed. "Are you saying that Emma and Sophie have been kidnapped?" "I'm saying that someone has been using them as pawns in a larger game," Victoria replied. "And you, Mr. Chen, may have inadvertently saved their lives by interfering with whatever plan was in motion." Marcus looked at the twins again. They were watching him with growing concern, obviously picking up on the tension in his voice, even if they couldn't hear both sides of the conversation. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. "First, I need you to stay exactly where you are. Don't leave the hotel room, don't answer the door for anyone except federal agents with proper identification, and don't let anyone else know where you are." "Okay. Second, I need to know everything that happened from the moment you first saw the girls. Every detail, no matter how small. Someone is going to be looking for them, and we need to understand how much time we have." Marcus spent the next 20 minutes recounting everything that had happened, from finding the twins, crying at gate B23, to the strange phone call from someone claiming to be Victoria Sterling. Victoria Chen listened without interrupting, occasionally asking for clarification on specific details. "The woman who called you was not me," she confirmed when he finished. "That was someone trying to recover the girls before they could be found by the right people." "Who would do something like this?" Marcus asked. "Mr. Chen, when you control the kind of logistics network that I do, you make enemies. Some of them are competitors who want to damage my business. Others are criminals who see my wealth and think my family makes easy targets. And some are people who want to use my resources for purposes I would never willingly support." Marcus felt a chill. What kind of purposes? The kind that involve moving things across international borders. Without proper documentation or oversight, Victoria said grimly. My company has legitimate contracts with governments and corporations around the world, but there are always people who want to exploit those relationships for illegal activities. The implications were staggering. Marcus was holding his phone, with one hand and running the other through his hair, trying to process what he was hearing. Ms. Chen, I'm just a construction worker who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't know anything about international crime or corporate espionage. Mr. Chen, Victoria said, and her voice became warmer, more personal. You may think you're just a construction worker, but you've done something today that trained security professionals failed to do. You found my daughters when they were in danger, you kept them safe, and you trusted your instincts when something didn't feel right. That makes you exactly the right person to be helping them. Marcus looked at Emma and Sophie, who had moved closer to him on the bed. They were leaning against his arms, one on each side, as if they could absorb comfort through physical contact. Are you really their mother? He asked, though he already knew the answer. I am, Victoria said simply. And Mr. Chen, when this is over, I want you to know that I will never forget what you've done for my family. There was a knock at the hotel room door, and Marcus felt his heart rate spike immediately. Someone's here, he whispered into the phone. Don't answer it, Victoria said urgently. Federal agents will identify themselves properly and show badges. Anyone else should be considered dangerous. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. A man's voice called out, Hotel maintenance. We need to check the air conditioning unit. Marcus muted his phone and looked at the twins. Did either of you say anything about the air conditioning being broken? He whispered. Both girls shook their heads, their eyes wide with fear. Marcus unmuted the phone. Fake maintenance, he whispered to Victoria. Get in the bathroom, she instructed. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. Marcus gathered the twins and their backpacks and quickly moved them into the bathroom. The space was small but solid, with a deadbolt lock on the door. He turned on the bathroom fan to muffle their voices and sat down on the floor with Emma and Sophie pressed against his sides. Ms. Chen, he whispered into his phone. What's happening? Federal agents are 15 minutes away, she said. The people at your door are not law enforcement. They're here to take the girls. The knocking had stopped, but Marcus could hear sounds in the hallway that suggested people were still outside his room. Then he heard something that made his blood run cold. The electronic beep of a hotel keycard being used to open the door. They're inside the room, he breathed into the phone. Stay quiet, Victoria said. Stay hidden. Marcus could hear footsteps. In the room, multiple people moving around and speaking in low voices. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was urgent and professional. These weren't random criminals. They were organized and experienced. Emma reached up and tugged on his sleeve. When he looked down, she mouthed silently, They're not the right people. Marcus nodded and wrapped his arms more tightly around. Both girls. Sophie was trembling slightly, but neither girl made a sound. The footsteps approached the bathroom door, and Marcus held his breath. The door handle turned, but the deadbolt held. Someone rattled the handle more aggressively. Then there was a quiet conversation Marcus couldn't understand. His phone vibrated, with a text message from Victoria. Agents are in the building. 2 minutes. The sounds from the main room suddenly became more urgent. Marcus heard rapid footsteps, the sound of bags being moved around, and what sounded like a brief, heated argument in a language he didn't recognize. Then, as abruptly as it had started, everything went quiet. Marcus waited for what felt like an eternity before his phone rang again. Mr. Chen, Victoria's voice was calm but tired. Federal agents are at your door now. Agent Sarah Kim will identify herself and show you her badge. You can trust her. Marcus unlocked the bathroom door slowly and peered out into the main room. It looked exactly as they had left it, with no sign that anyone had been inside. But the silence felt different now, charged with the aftermath of something dangerous. A new knock came at the hotel room door, followed by a woman's voice. "Mr. Chen, this is Agent Sarah Kim with the FBI. I'm here about Emma and Sophie Chen." Marcus looked through the peephole and saw a woman in a dark suit, holding up an official-looking badge. She was alone, which surprised him. "How do I know you're really FBI?" he called through the door. "Ms. Victoria Chen should still be on the phone with you," Agent Kim replied. "Ask her to confirm my identity." Marcus put the phone back to his ear. "Ms. Chen?" "Agent Kim is legitimate," Victoria confirmed. "She's been coordinating the search for the girls since they were taken. You can trust her completely." Marcus opened the door, and Agent Kim stepped inside quickly, immediately, scanning the room with professional efficiency. She was younger than Marcus had expected, probably in her early 30s, with sharp eyes and an air of competent authority. "Where are Emma and Sophie?" she asked. "In the bathroom," Marcus replied. "They're scared." Agent Kim nodded and approached the bathroom door slowly. "Emma, Sophie, my name is Sarah and I work with your mom. She sent me to make sure you're safe." The bathroom door opened a crack and Emma peered out. "Are you really from Mom?" "I am," Agent Kim said gently, "and she's very worried about you. She wants you to come home." Both girls emerged from the bathroom cautiously, staying close to Marcus. Agent Kim crouched down to their eye level, her expression softening. "You two have been very brave," she said, "and Mr. Chen has taken excellent care of you. Your mom is going to want to thank him personally." Marcus was still processing everything that had happened. "Agent Kim, who were those people who came to the room earlier?" "We're still working on identifying them," she replied, standing up. "But based on what your Ms. Chen has told me, they were likely working for whoever orchestrated the girls' kidnapping in the first place, and they just let themselves into the room." Agent Kim's expression darkened. "Professional kidnappers have access to resources that most people don't expect. Hotel keycards, false identification, even fake federal credentials. That's why Ms. Chen was so insistent that you not open the door for anyone." Marcus shook his head in amazement. 6 hours ago, his biggest worry had been making rent in Phoenix. Now he was apparently in the middle of an international kidnapping case involving billions of dollars and federal agents. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we get Emma and Sophie safely reunited with their mother," Agent Kim said. "And you, Mr. Chen, get to go home with the gratitude of a very powerful woman and the knowledge that you helped save 2 little girls' lives." Marcus looked down at Emma and Sophie, who were still standing close to him, despite the presence of the federal agent. "Where is their mother? Can I meet her?" "She's on her way," Agent Kim said. "Her private jet should be landing at Denver International within the hour." The phrase "private jet" reminded Marcus of just how far outside his normal world this situation had taken him. Victoria Chen wasn't just wealthy. She was wealthy enough to command federal resources and fly across the country at a moment's notice to recover her children. "Mr. Chen," Agent Kim continued, "Ms. Chen would like to speak with you privately before we transfer custody of the girls. Would you be willing to meet with her?" Marcus nodded, though he wasn't sure what a conversation with someone of Victoria Chen's stature would entail. "Of course." "Excellent. We'll escort you and the girls to a secure area of the airport where she can meet you safely." As they prepared to leave the hotel room, Emma tugged on Marcus's shirt again. "Mr. Marcus," she said quietly. "Yes? Will we see you again after we go home?" The question hit Marcus harder than he expected. Over the course of just a few hours, these two little girls had somehow become important to him in a way that defied logical explanation. The thought of never seeing them again felt wrong, incomplete. "I hope so," he said honestly. Sophie took his hand. "We hope so too." Agent Kim led them through a series of corridors and secure areas that Marcus hadn't known existed in the airport. They took a service elevator down to the ground level, then walked through what appeared to be a restricted area used by airport personnel and federal agencies. Finally, they arrived at a small conference room with windows overlooking the tarmac. Through the glass, Marcus could see a sleek white jet with subtle blue markings taxiing toward the terminal. "That's her plane," Agent Kim said, following his. A gaze. As they watched, the jet came to a stop near the building. Ground crew members immediately began the process of securing the aircraft and preparing for passenger disembarkation. Emma and Sophie pressed their faces to the window, watching with obvious excitement. "Mom's here," Emma said, bouncing slightly, on her toes. "She came to get us herself," Sophie added, sounding slightly surprised. Marcus wondered about that reaction. "Doesn't your mum usually come get you personally?" The twins looked at each other with that familiar silent communication. "Usually Nana comes," Emma said, "or one of Mom's assistants. Mom is really busy," Sophie explained. "So when she comes herself, it means something important happened." Agent Kim checked her watch. "She should be here in about 10 minutes. Mr. Chen, are you ready for this conversation?" Marcus laughed nervously. "I don't think anyone could be ready for this conversation." "Indeed, for what it's worth," Agent Kim said, "Victoria Chen is one of the most decent people I've ever worked with in law enforcement. She cares more about her family than her business, which is saying something considering how successful her business is." A few minutes later, Marcus heard footsteps in the corridor outside the conference room. Agent Kim opened the door and Victoria Chen walked in. Marcus's first thought was that she looked exactly like what he would have expected if someone had asked him to imagine Emma and Sophie's mother 25 years in the future. She had the same dark hair, the same intelligent brown eyes, and the same graceful way of moving. But there was also something else about her, an aura of quiet authority that spoke of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected thousands of people. "Emma, Sophie." Victoria's voice broke slightly as she said their names. She knelt down and opened her arms, and both girls ran to her without hesitation. Marcus watched the reunion with a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief, because it was obvious that these were definitely Victoria's daughters and that they loved her deeply. Sadness, because he realized how much he was going to miss having them in his life. After a long moment, Victoria stood up, keeping one hand on each girl's shoulder. She looked directly at Marcus and he saw tears in her eyes. "Mr. Chen," she said, "I don't have adequate words to thank you for what you've done today." Marcus felt awkward and out of place in the presence of someone so clearly important and successful. "I just did what anyone would have done." Victoria shook her head firmly. "No, most people would have notified airport security and walked away. You chose to stay involved, even when the situation became complicated and potentially dangerous. You protected my daughters when they needed protection. They're good kids," Marcus said simply. "They were scared, and I couldn't just leave them." Victoria studied his face for a moment, and Marcus had the distinct impression that she was evaluating him in some way. "Agent Kim tells me that you missed your flight to Phoenix because of this situation." Marcus nodded. "I was supposed to start a new job there tomorrow." "What kind of work do you do?" "Construction. Project management mostly. My cousin has a roofing company." Victoria glanced at Agent Kim, then back at Marcus. "Mr. Chen, I'd like to make you an offer, but first, I need to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly." Marcus nodded, though he had no idea what she might ask. Are you happy with the direction your life is taking? The question caught Marcus completely off guard. He thought about his failed marriage, his unemployment, the apartment he'd lost, the legal fees that had wiped out his savings, and the desperation that had driven him to accept a job in Phoenix from a cousin he barely knew. No, he said finally, I'm not. Victoria nodded as if she had expected that answer. What would make you happy? Marcus looked at Emma and Sophie, who were listening to this conversation with obvious curiosity. Having work that matters, he said. Being around people who care about something more important than money, making a difference in someone's life. And family? Victoria asked gently. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I have a daughter, Lily. She's 8. But my ex-wife is trying to reduce my visitation rights because I lost my job. Victoria's expression softened. That must be very difficult. It is, Marcus admitted. Everything I've done for the past year has been about trying to rebuild my life so I can be the father Lily deserves. Victoria was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking. Then she turned to Agent Kim. Could you give us a few minutes alone? Perhaps take Emma and Sophie to get something to drink. Agent Kim nodded and led the twins out of the conference room, leaving Marcus alone with one of the most powerful business leaders in the world. Mr. Chen, Victoria said, settling into a chair across from him, I'm going to tell you something that very few people know. My daughters are the most important thing in my life, but my work requires me to travel constantly and make decisions that put me in contact with dangerous people. Today's incident is not the first time someone has tried to use Emma and Sophie to manipulate me. Marcus waited for her to continue. I've been looking for someone I can trust completely to help me protect them. Someone who would put their safety and well-being above money, above business interests, above everything else. Today, you proved that you're that person. Marcus felt his heart start beating faster. What are you saying? I'm saying that I want to offer you a job, Mr. Chen. Not just any job, but a position that would allow you to be part of my daughter's lives while also having the resources to be the father your own daughter deserves. The room felt like it was spinning slightly. Ms. Chen, I don't know anything about international business or aviation or any of the things you do. Victoria smiled. I'm not offering you a job in international business. I'm offering you a job taking care of the people who matter most to me. Emma and Sophie need someone they can trust, someone who will always put their interests first. Today, you proved that you're that person. Marcus stared at her, trying to process what she was suggesting. You want me to work for you, taking care of Emma and Sophie. I want you to work for me, protecting my family, Victoria said. That would include Emma and Sophie, but it would also include providing you with the resources to fight for custody of your own daughter and to give her the life you want her to have. The offer was so far beyond anything Marcus had imagined that he couldn't immediately respond. Victoria seemed to understand his shock. Mr. Chen, let me be specific about what I'm proposing. I would employ you as Director of Family Security for Pacific Bridge Logistics. Your salary would be $500,000 per year, plus benefits, plus housing allowances, plus educational support for your daughter. Your primary responsibility would be ensuring the safety and well-being of my children, but you would also have access to the best legal representation available to resolve your custody issues. Marcus felt like he might pass out. $500,000 plus benefits, Victoria repeated. Mr. Chen, what you did today was worth far more to me than money. You saved my daughter's lives and proved that there are still people in the world who will do the right thing simply because it's right. That kind of integrity is priceless. Marcus looked out the window at the jet that had brought Victoria Chen across the country to recover her children. 6 hours ago, He had been a broke, unemployed single father with no prospects and no hope. Now he was being offered a job that would not only solve all his financial problems, but also give him the resources to fight for his daughter and be part of a family that clearly valued the same things he did. "Miss Chen," he said slowly. You sure about this? You barely know me." Victoria Chen smiled, and for the first time since she had entered the room, she looked not like a powerful business executive, but like a grateful mother. "Mr. Chen," she said, "I know everything I need to know about you. You saw two scared little girls and chose to help them, even when it cost you money you couldn't afford and complicated your life in ways you couldn't predict. You trusted your instincts when something felt wrong, and you protected my children when they needed protection most. If that's not the definition of someone I can trust with my family, then I don't know what is." Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes as the magnitude of what was being offered finally sank in. Not just a job, but a chance to rebuild his entire life. Not just financial security, but the opportunity to be part of something meaningful. "What about Emma and Sophie?" he asked. "How do they feel about this?" Victoria laughed. "Mr. Chen, my daughters have been asking me if they can keep you since Agent Kim told them you were going to meet me. I think they're more excited about this possibility than you are." As if summoned by the mention of their names, Emma and Sophie appeared in the doorway with Agent Kim. Both girls looked hopeful and expectant. "Mr. Marcus," Emma said, "Mom says you might come work for us." "Would you really want to?" Sophie added. "We could show you all our favorite places, and you could meet Nana, and we could teach you to play our games." Marcus looked at these two remarkable little girls who had somehow changed his entire life in the span of a single afternoon. Then he looked at their mother, who was offering him something he had never dared to dream of. "Yes," he said, surprising himself with how certain he sounded. "I would really want to." The smile that spread across Emma and Sophie's faces was brighter than anything Marcus had seen in months. They ran to him and wrapped their arms around his waist, and Marcus felt something inside his chest that had been broken for a very long time finally start to heal. Victoria Chen stood up and extended her hand to Marcus. "Welcome to the family, Mr. Chen." As Marcus shook her hand, he realized that he had gotten on a plane that morning thinking he was flying toward a new beginning in Phoenix. Instead, he had found something infinitely better, a new beginning that included two extraordinary little girls, their remarkable mother, and the possibility of finally becoming the man and father he had always wanted to be. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in the living room of a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, watching Emma and Sophie practice piano while their grandmother, Helen Chen, prepared afternoon tea in the kitchen. The view from the 42nd floor was spectacular, but Marcus still felt like he was living in someone else's dream. The transition from unemployed construction worker to director of family security had been surreal. Victoria had arranged for Marcus to fly back to Seattle to collect his belongings and say goodbye to his old life. She had also assigned him a team of lawyers to handle his custody case with Jennifer, and within 2 weeks they had successfully argued for expanded visitation rights based on Marcus's dramatically improved financial circumstances. The apartment Victoria had provided for him was in the same building as her family's residence, just 2 floors down. It had 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, and furnishings that probably cost more than Marcus had made in entire years. But more importantly, it meant he could be available whenever Emma and Sophie needed him, day or night. His role as director of family security was unlike anything he had imagined. Rather than being a traditional bodyguard or security officer, Marcus found himself functioning more as a combination of family coordinator, educational consultant, and trusted adult friend to the twins. Victoria traveled extensively for business, sometimes for weeks at a time. And during those periods, Marcus became the primary stable adult presence in Emma and Sophie's lives. The girls attended an exclusive private school on the Upper East Side, but they also received tutoring in Mandarin, Korean, and French from native speakers who came to the apartment 3 times a week. Marcus had been surprised to discover that Emma and Sophie were already fluent in English and Korean, with conversational ability in Mandarin. Their education was comprehensive and rigorous, but it was also designed around their unusual lifestyle requirements. Chen, Victoria's mother, was a formidable woman in her 70s who had emigrated from Seoul to New York in the 1960s with nothing but determination and a gift for languages. She had built her own successful import business before retiring. To help raise Emma and Sophie, she spoke 4 languages fluently, had traveled to more than 50 countries, and possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of international customs and protocols. During Marcus's first week in New York, Helen had taken him aside for what she called an orientation conversation, but which felt more like a gentle interrogation. "Mr. Chen," she had said over tea in her impeccably decorated sitting room, "my daughter tells me that you risked your own future to protect my granddaughters. Is this true?" Marcus had nodded, unsure how to respond to such a direct question. "And now you are willing to dedicate your life to ensuring their safety and happiness?" "I am," Marcus had replied. Helen had studied his face for a long moment before smiling. "Good. Because Emma and Sophie have already decided that you are family, and in this household, family is everything." That conversation had taken place 18 days ago, and Marcus was still adjusting to being treated as family by people who could afford to hire armies of professionals to handle any problem. But Emma and Sophie made it easy. They had accepted his presence in their lives with the same natural grace they showed in everything else, and they seemed genuinely delighted to have him around. "Mr. Marcus," Sophie called from the piano bench, interrupting his thoughts. "Can you help us with this part?" Marcus walked over to where both girls were struggling with a particularly complex passage in a Chopin piece their instructor had assigned. He couldn't read music, but he had developed a good ear for when they were hitting the right notes versus when they were just approximating. "Play it slower," he suggested. "Break it down into smaller pieces." Emma nodded and began again. This time, taking the passage measure by measure. Marcus watched her small fingers navigate the keys with impressive precision. Both girls had been taking piano lessons since they were 4, and their skill level was remarkable for 6-year-olds. "Better," he said when she finished the passage cleanly. "Now you try, Sophie." As Sophie worked through the same section, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message from Victoria, who was currently in Singapore negotiating a new cargo route agreement. "How are my girls today?" the message read. Marcus snapped a quick photo of Emma and Sophie at the piano and sent it back with the caption, "Conquering Chopin." His phone rang almost immediately, and Marcus answered to hear Victoria's laughter. "They look so serious," she said. "Are they giving you trouble?" "No more than usual," Marcus replied, moving to the kitchen where Helen was arranging delicate pastries on a silver tray. "They're amazing kids, Victoria. You should be proud." "I am," Victoria said, her voice warm. "Marcus, I wanted to call because there's been a development in the investigation into what happened at the airport." Marcus felt his attention sharpen. "What kind of development?" "The FBI has identified the people who were tracking Emma and Sophie that day. It turns out they were working for a competitor who wanted to force me into a business partnership by threatening my family." "Have they been arrested?" "Most of them," Victoria said, But Agent Kim wanted me to warn you that there might be additional attempts to gather information about our family's routines and security measures. Nothing immediate or dangerous, but we need to be more careful for the next few weeks. Marcus glanced at Emma and Sophie, who were now playing a duet together. What does that mean, practically? It means I'm coming home earlier than planned, Victoria said. I should be back tomorrow evening instead of next week. And it means we need to have a family meeting about some changes to our security protocols. Understood. Marcus, Victoria's voice became more personal. How are you adjusting to everything, really? It was a question she asked him regularly, and Marcus appreciated that she genuinely seemed to care about his well-being rather than just his effectiveness at his job. It's overwhelming sometimes, he admitted, but good overwhelming. Emma and Sophie make it feel natural. And your own situation? Have you been able to speak with Lily recently? Marcus smiled. Actually, yes. Jennifer agreed to let Lily spend next weekend here in New York. It'll be the first time I've seen her since I started working for you. That's wonderful news, Victoria said. I'm looking forward to meeting her. Emma and Sophie have been asking about their new big sister constantly. The phrase big sister still caught Marcus off guard. Emma and Sophie had started referring to Lily that way within days of learning about her, despite never having met her. It was typical of their generous approach to relationships and their willingness to expand their definition of family to include people they cared about. How long can she stay? Victoria asked. Just the weekend this time, Marcus said. But the lawyers think we'll be able to negotiate longer visits soon, especially if Jennifer sees that Lily is happy and safe here. We'll make sure she has a wonderful time, Victoria said. Give my love to the girls and tell them I'll call them before bedtime. After hanging up, Marcus returned to the living room where Emma and Sophie had abandoned the piano in favor of building an elaborate city out of blocks and toy cars. Helen was setting the tea tray on the coffee table and arranging cups for 4 people. Was that Mom? Emma asked without looking up from her construction project. It was, Marcus confirmed. She's coming home tomorrow instead of next week. Both girls looked up with excitement. Really? Sophie asked. Why? Marcus chose his words carefully. She finished her meetings early and missed you too much to stay away. It was close enough to the truth to satisfy the twins, who went back to their building project with renewed enthusiasm. Helen caught Marcus's eye and nodded approvingly. She had raised Victoria and understood the balance between honesty and age-appropriate information that was required when discussing business matters with young children. Mr. Marcus, Helen said, settling into her favorite armchair, would you join us for tea? Marcus had learned that tea time with Helen Chen was both a daily ritual and an informal family meeting. It was when important household decisions were made, when the girls shared stories from school, and when Helen dispensed wisdom gained from 7 decades of navigating complex family and business relationships. Emma and Sophie, Helen said, as she poured tea into delicate china cups, your mother tells me that Lily will be visiting next weekend. Both girls immediately abandoned their blocks and climbed onto the sofa, eager to discuss this development. What games does she like to play? Emma asked. Does she know how to use chopsticks? Sophie added. Will she want to sleep in our room? Marcus laughed at their rapid-fire questions. She's 8, so she's a little older than you two. She likes to draw and read, and she's really good at soccer. I don't know about chopsticks, but I'm sure she'd love to learn. And we can ask her about the sleeping arrangements when she gets here. Helen nodded thoughtfully. We should plan some activities that will help her feel welcome. Perhaps a trip to the Natural History Museum. And we could arrange for her to meet some of the other children in the building. The building where they lived was home to several families with children, and Helen had cultivated relationships with the parents that allowed for informal play dates and social activities. It was one of the ways she ensured that Emma and Sophie had opportunities for normal childhood experiences, despite their unusual circumstances. "Can we show her the art room?" Emma asked. "And the library?" The penthouse apartment where Victoria and the girls lived was more like a private residence than a typical apartment. It included a dedicated art studio where Emma and Sophie could paint and draw, a library with thousands of books in multiple languages, and a music room with several instruments, including 2 pianos and a small harp. "Of course," Helen said, "but remember that not everyone is accustomed to having so much space and so many things. We want Lily to feel comfortable, not overwhelmed." It was a conversation Helen had with the twins regularly. Despite their wealth and privilege, Victoria and Helen were determined to raise Emma and Sophie to be thoughtful and considerate of others' circumstances. "We'll be really careful," Sophie promised. "We don't want her to feel weird." Marcus felt a surge of affection for both girls. They had been born into extraordinary privilege, but they possessed an innate kindness and sensitivity that spoke to the values Victoria and Helen had instilled in them. "I think Lily is going to love meeting both of you," he said. "And I think you're going to love having a big sister to show around." The rest of the afternoon passed in the comfortable rhythm that had become familiar to Marcus over the past 3 weeks. Emma and Sophie finished their block city, practiced violin for 30 minutes each, and then settled down with Helen to work on a jigsaw puzzle featuring a map of the world. Marcus used the time to review the security protocols that Agent Kim had provided and to coordinate with the building's security staff about procedures for the next day when Victoria returned. One of the aspects of his job that had surprised him was how much coordination was required to ensure the family's safety, without making their lives feel restrictive or abnormal. Victoria's apartment building employed its own security team, but Marcus also worked with federal agents who monitored potential threats and private security consultants who provided additional expertise when needed. The challenge was creating layers of protection that were invisible to Emma and Sophie, allowing them to live as normally as possible while ensuring they were always safe. As the sun began to set over Central Park, Marcus helped Helen prepare dinner while Emma and Sophie set the table. It was another daily ritual that reinforced the sense of family and normalcy that Victoria wanted her daughters to experience. "Mr. Marcus," Helen said as she chopped vegetables for a stir-fry, "may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Are you happy here, truly?" Marcus paused in his task of washing rice. It was a fair question, and one he had been asking himself regularly since accepting Victoria's offer. "Yes," he said finally, "more than I expected to be, more than I've been in a long time." Helen nodded, but continued to look at him expectantly, as if waiting for him to elaborate. "I think," Marcus said slowly, "I spent so many years focused on what I had lost that I forgot to recognize what I could gain. Being here with Emma and Sophie, being part of this family, it's given me a sense of purpose I didn't know I was missing." "And you don't feel like an employee?" Helen asked. "You feel like family?" "I feel like someone who belongs here," Marcus said, "which is something I haven't felt anywhere in a very long time." Helen smiled with satisfaction. "Good, because that is exactly what Victoria hoped would happen." During dinner, Emma and Sophie peppered Marcus with questions about Lily. What was her favorite color? Did she like the same foods they did? Could they teach her some Korean words? Marcus answered as best he could, but he realized that there were many things about his daughter that he didn't know as well as he should. The custody arrangement with Jennifer had limited him to weekend visits and phone calls, which meant that much of Lily's daily life remained mysterious to him. He knew her favorite books and her soccer schedule, but he didn't know what she liked to eat for breakfast or which friends she played with at school. Mr. Marcus, Sophie said, interrupting his thoughts, you look sad. Marcus realized he had been staring at his plate while lost in thought. I was just thinking about how much I'm looking forward to spending more time with Lily. There's a lot about her life that I've missed. Emma and Sophie exchanged one of their meaningful looks. Then Emma reached over and patted Marcus's hand. That's okay, she said seriously. We can help you learn everything about her. And then you won't miss anything anymore, Sophie added. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes at their earnest desire to help him be a better father. Thank you, he said. That means a lot to me. After dinner, Marcus supervised bath time and bedtime routines while Helen cleaned the kitchen and prepared things for the next day. Victoria called from Singapore as promised, and Marcus held his phone so both girls could talk to her while they were in their pajamas and ready for bed. Did you practice piano today? Victoria asked. Yes, Emma replied. We're getting really good at the Chopin piece. And Mr. Marcus helped us, Sophie added. He has good ears. I'm sure he does, Victoria said, and Marcus could hear the smile in her voice. Are you excited about Lily visiting this weekend? Both girls launched into enthusiastic descriptions of all the things they wanted to show her and do with her. Victoria listened patiently, occasionally asking questions or making suggestions. Remember, she said finally, the most important thing is to make Lily feel welcome and loved. Everything else is just details. After the girls were tucked into bed, Marcus returned to his own apartment 2 floors down. The space was beautiful and comfortable, but it felt empty after spending the day surrounded by the warmth and energy of Victoria's family. He called Lily before she went to bed, as he did every night. Hi, Daddy, she said when Jennifer handed her the phone. Hi, sweetheart. How was school today? And good. We're reading this really cool book about a girl who lives in a treehouse, and I scored 2 goals at soccer practice. Marcus smiled. That's wonderful. I'm proud of you. Daddy, Mommy says I get to visit you in New York this weekend. Is that true? It is true, Marcus confirmed. I can't wait to see you, and I want you to meet some very special people. The twins you told me about, Emma and Sophie, yes. They're very excited to meet you. Are they nice? They're the nicest kids I've ever met, Marcus said honestly. Besides you, of course. Lily giggled. Of course. Daddy, will you show me your new apartment and the tall buildings? I'll show you everything, Marcus promised. We're going to have the best weekend ever. After saying goodnight to Lily, Marcus sat in his living room, looking out at the city lights and thinking about how dramatically his life had changed. A month ago, he had been preparing to start over in Phoenix with nothing but hope and desperation. Now he was living in one of the most expensive apartments in Manhattan, working for one of the most successful businesswomen in the world, and preparing to introduce his daughter to a family that had embraced him as one of their own. His phone buzzed with a text message from Victoria. Thank you for taking such good care of my girls. See you tomorrow evening. Marcus typed back, thank you for trusting me with them. Safe travels. As he prepared for bed, Marcus thought about the conversation he'd had with Helen earlier. Was he truly happy? The question deserved serious consideration. For years after his divorce, Marcus had defined happiness in terms of what he had lost: his marriage, his home, his financial stability, his daily relationship with Lily. He had measured his life against what it used to be, rather than what it could become. But living with Victoria's family had shown him a different way to think about happiness. Emma and Sophie had been through their own trauma with the kidnapping attempt, yet they approached each day with curiosity and joy. Victoria carried enormous responsibilities and faced constant challenges in her business, yet she prioritized her family and found ways to create moments of connection and love. Helen had lived through immigration, discrimination, and the challenges of building a business in a foreign country, yet she radiated contentment and wisdom. All of them had learned to find happiness not by avoiding difficulties or losses, but by focusing on the relationships and experiences that gave their lives meaning. Marcus was beginning to understand that happiness wasn't about having a perfect life. It was about having a life that felt purposeful and connected to people who mattered. As he drifted off to sleep in his new bed in his new life, Marcus thought about Lily's upcoming visit and felt something he hadn't experienced in years: excitement about the future rather than anxiety about it. The next evening, Marcus stood in the private airport terminal at Teterboro, watching Victoria's jet taxi toward the gate. Emma and Sophie pressed their faces to the windows, practically vibrating with excitement about their mother's early return. "There she is!" Emma shouted as the plane came to a stop. "I see her!" Sophie added, pointing at a figure moving around inside the cabin. Marcus smiled at their enthusiasm. Despite video calls and constant communication, both girls clearly missed their mother intensely when she traveled. It was one of the reasons Victoria was working to reduce her travel schedule and delegate more responsibilities to her executive team. When Victoria emerged from the jet, both girls ran to her without waiting for permission. She caught them in a hug that lasted for several minutes, and Marcus could see that she had missed them just as much as they had missed her. "My beautiful girls," she said, kissing the tops of their heads. "I missed you so much." "We missed you too," Emma said. "Mr. Marcus took really good care of us, but it wasn't the same without you." Victoria looked over the girls' heads at Marcus and smiled. "I'm sure he did an excellent job." During the car ride back to Manhattan, Emma and Sophie filled Victoria in on everything that had happened during her absence. Piano lessons, school projects, visits with friends in the building, and most importantly, the upcoming visit from Lily. "Mom," Sophie said seriously, "we need to make sure Lily knows she's family now." "That's right," Emma agreed. "Mr. Marcus is family, so that means Lily is family too." Victoria met Marcus's eyes in the rearview mirror. "I think that's a wonderful way to think about it," she said. When they arrived at the apartment, Helen was waiting with dinner prepared and updates on household matters that had required Victoria's attention. But even during their business conversation, Victoria kept one hand on Emma's shoulder and frequently reached over to smooth Sophie's hair. It was clear that being separated from her daughters, even for important business reasons, was difficult for her. After the girls were in bed, Victoria invited Marcus to join her for tea in her study. The room was lined with books and featured comfortable chairs arranged around a low table. It felt more like a professor's office than a corporate executive's workspace. "How did everything really go while I was away?" Victoria asked as she poured tea from an elegant ceramic pot. "Smoothly," Marcus replied. "The girls were wonderful. A little subdued the first few days after you left, but they bounced back quickly." "And the security protocols? Any concerns?" Marcus shook his head. "Everything went according to plan. Agent Kim checked in twice. Building security reported no unusual activity, and I didn't notice anything that seemed concerning." Victoria nodded, but Marcus could see tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there when she was focused on Emma and Sophie. "Victoria," he said gently, "are you worried about something specific?" She was quiet for a moment, staring into her teacup. "The investigation into the airport incident has revealed some things that concern me," she said finally. "What kind of things?" "The people who tried to take Emma and Sophie weren't just working for a business competitor," Victoria said. "They were part of a larger organization that specializes in targeting the families of high-profile individuals, not just for ransom, but for long-term leverage and control." Marcus felt a chill. "What does that mean?" "It means that someone with significant resources is very interested in gaining access to my business operations," Victoria said, "and they've determined that the best way to do that is through my family." "Are Emma and Sophie in immediate danger?" Not immediate danger, Victoria said, but we need to be more careful going forward, which brings me to something I wanted to discuss with you. Marcus waited for her to continue. I'm considering moving the family to a more secure location, Victoria said. Somewhere we can have better control over access and monitoring. It would mean leaving New York, at least temporarily. Marcus thought about Lily's upcoming visit and the custody arrangement he had just succeeded in improving. Where would you want to go? I have a property in Northern California, Victoria said. It's more isolated, but it has excellent security, features, and enough space for everyone to be comfortable, including Lily, if your custody situation allows for it. You would want me to come with you? Victoria looked at him with surprise. Marcus, of course I would want you to come with us. You're not just an employee, you're family. The word family still caught Marcus off guard, even after 3 weeks of hearing it regularly from Emma, Sophie, and Helen. What about Lily's school, her mother? We could arrange for tutoring and virtual schooling temporarily, Victoria said. And as for Jennifer, well, you now have the resources to make a compelling case for why Lily would be better off with you. Marcus considered the implications. Moving to California would mean starting over again, but this time with a family that wanted him there and resources that could solve most practical problems. When would this happen? He asked. Soon, Victoria said. Agent Kim thinks we should relocate within the next 2 weeks, before whoever is behind this has time to organize another attempt. Marcus thought about Emma and Sophie, sleeping peacefully 2 rooms away, trusting that the adults in their lives would keep them safe. He thought about Lily, excited about her first visit to New York, and unaware that her father's life had become something out of a spy novel. What do Emma and Sophie think about moving? He asked. They don't know yet, Victoria admitted. I wanted to discuss it with you first. You've become such an important part of their lives that I can't make decisions about their welfare without considering how it affects you. Marcus felt the weight of that responsibility and trust. 3 weeks ago, he had been a stranger who happened to help 2 lost children. Now he was someone whose opinion mattered in decisions about their future. I think, he said slowly, that we should do whatever keeps them safest. If that means moving to California, then that's what we should do. Victoria smiled with relief. I was hoping you would say that. But I think we should tell them together, Marcus continued. They trust both of us, and they should hear this kind of news from both of us. Agreed, Victoria said. We'll talk to them tomorrow after school. As Marcus prepared to return to his own apartment, Victoria stopped him with a hand on his arm. Marcus, she said, I want you to know how grateful I am that you came into our lives. Emma and Sophie have been happier and more secure since you've been here than they've been since the first kidnapping attempt. The first attempt? Marcus asked, startled. Victoria's expression darkened. This wasn't the first time someone has tried to use my daughters to manipulate me. It's just the first time the attempt was intercepted by someone I could trust completely. Marcus felt a new understanding of the weight Victoria carried every day. She wasn't just responsible for a multi-billion-dollar business and thousands of employees. She was also a mother trying to protect her children from people who saw them as tools rather than human beings. Victoria, he said, you don't have to carry this alone anymore. Whatever we're facing it together. She smiled, and Marcus saw some of the tension leave her shoulders. Thank you, she said simply. As Marcus rode the elevator down to his own floor, he realized that he was no longer thinking about this situation in terms of a job or even an opportunity. He was thinking about it in terms of family, responsibility, and love. Emma and Sophie had somehow become his daughters in everything but biology. Victoria had become not just an employer, but a partner in protecting what mattered most. and Helen had become the grandmother he had never had but always wished for. Moving to California would mean leaving behind the life he had been trying to rebuild in New York, but it would also mean moving toward a life that was richer and more meaningful than anything he had ever imagined possible. When he reached his apartment, Marcus called Lily to say goodnight and found himself making a decision that felt both terrifying and completely natural. "Sweetheart," he said after they had talked about her day, "how would you feel about living with Daddy all the time instead of just visiting?" There was a pause, then Lily's voice came through the phone, bright with excitement. "Really? Could I really live with you?" "It's complicated," Marcus said, "but yes, I think it might be possible. I would love that, Daddy. I miss you all the time." As Marcus hung up the phone, he realized that for the first time in his adult life, he was making decisions based not on fear or desperation, but on love and hope. Tomorrow he would help Victoria tell Emma and Sophie about the move to California. This weekend, he would introduce Lily to her new sisters and show her the family that was ready to embrace her completely. And sometime soon, he would call Jennifer's lawyers to begin the process of changing their custody arrangement permanently. Marcus Chen, who had started this journey as a broke and desperate single father catching a flight to Phoenix, was finally ready to build the life he had always wanted, but never believed he deserved. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Victoria's study as Marcus sat across from Emma and Sophie, watching their faces carefully as Victoria explained the situation in terms they could understand. The twins had finished their breakfast and were still in their school uniforms, having been called into this family meeting before their usual departure time. "So we're going on an adventure to California?" Emma asked, her head tilted in the way she did when processing complex information. "Not exactly an adventure," Victoria said gently. "More like a temporary move to keep our family safe while some grown-up problems get solved." Sophie's expression was more serious than her sister's. "Are the bad people who tried to take us before still looking for us?" Marcus felt his chest tighten at the casual way she referred to bad people, as if kidnapping attempts were simply part of life for 6-year-olds to navigate. No child should have to think about such things, yet Emma and Sophie discussed security concerns with the same matter-of-fact tone they used to talk about homework. "There might be," Victoria replied honestly, "which is why we want to go somewhere they can't find us, at least for a while." "What about school?" Emma asked. "And our friends in the building?" "You'll have tutors for school," Marcus said. "The same subjects, just in a different place, and you can video call your friends every day." "Will Nana come with us?" Sophie asked, and Marcus could hear the worry in her voice. "Of course," Victoria said. "This whole family moves together." Emma was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking through the implications. "Will Mr. Marcus still be with us?" "I'm not going anywhere," Marcus said firmly. "We're a family, remember? Families stick together." The relief on both girls' faces was immediate and profound. Marcus realized that despite all the wealth and security surrounding them, what Emma and Sophie valued most was the certainty that the people they loved wouldn't disappear from their lives. "When do we leave?" Sophie asked. "Soon," Victoria said. "Probably next week. But first, we have something very special happening this weekend." Both girls looked at her expectantly. "Lily is still coming to visit," Marcus said. "She'll get to meet both of you, and we'll show her around New York before we go to California." "And then she'll come with us?" Emma asked hopefully. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "We're working on that. It's complicated because of grown-up legal things, but we're hopeful." "What if she can't come right away?" Sophie asked with the kind of practical thinking that often surprised adults. "Then we'll figure out how to visit her as much as possible, until she can join us permanently," Victoria said. "One way or another, Lily will always be part of this family." Dimes after the girls left for school with their usual security escort, Victoria and Marcus spent the morning coordinating the logistics of their relocation. Victoria's California property was a sprawling estate in Marin County, about an hour north of San Francisco. It sat on 200 acres of rolling hills and had been designed specifically with security in mind, featuring a main house, guest quarters, and facilities that could accommodate the family's educational and recreational needs. The property has its own airstrip, Victoria explained as she showed Marcus photos on her tablet, which means we can come and go without using commercial airports. There's also a fully equipped schoolroom, a medical facility, and quarters for security staff. Marcus studied the images of what looked more like a small resort than a private residence. How long have you owned this place? I bought it 5 years ago when the threats against my family first became serious, Victoria said. I hoped I'd never need to use it, but I wanted to have options. Have Emma and Sophie been there before? Once, for a vacation last summer, they loved it. There are horses, hiking trails, and a lake for swimming. From their perspective, it probably seems more like going to summer camp than going into hiding. Agent Kim arrived in the early afternoon to brief them on the latest intelligence regarding the organization that had targeted the family. She spread a collection of documents across Victoria's dining table and pulled up additional information on her laptop. We've identified the group as an international criminal syndicate that specializes in corporate espionage and coercion, she explained. They've been tracking your family's movements for at least 6 months, looking for opportunities to gain leverage over your business operations. Marcus studied photographs of several men and women who looked like they could be business executives or diplomats rather than criminals. What do they want from Victoria's company? Access to shipping routes and cargo manifests, Agent Kim replied. Pacific Bridge Logistics moves goods through some of the most strategically important ports in the world. Having insider access to that information would be incredibly valuable for smuggling operations, tax evasion schemes, and worse. Victoria's expression was grim. And they think threatening my children will make me cooperate. The good news, Agent Kim continued, is that moving to your California property will make their job much more difficult. The bad news is that this level of criminal organization doesn't typically give up easily. What does that mean for us long term? Marcus asked. It means this situation could last months or even years, Agent Kim said honestly. These people are patient, well-funded, and persistent. They'll wait for opportunities, and they'll adapt their strategies based on your responses. Marcus felt the weight of what they were committing to. This wasn't a temporary inconvenience that would resolve itself quickly. This was potentially a permanent change to how the family would live their lives. What about Lily? He asked. If she comes to live with us, will she be safe? The California property is one of the most secure private residences in the country, Agent Kim assured him. And having her there actually makes the security picture simpler because we won't have to coordinate protection across multiple locations. After Agent Kim left, Victoria and Marcus spent the rest of the afternoon making phone calls and arrangements for the move. Victoria delegated additional responsibilities to her executive team and rearranged her travel schedule to minimize time away from the family. Marcus contacted the lawyers handling his custody case to explore options for emergency custody modification based on security concerns. Mr. Patterson thinks we have a strong case, Marcus reported after speaking with the lead attorney, especially if we can demonstrate that Lily would be safer with us than in her current situation. What would we need to demonstrate that? Victoria asked. Documentation of the threats against your family, evidence that the security measures are necessary, and proof that we can provide appropriate care and education for Lily in California. Victoria nodded thoughtfully. I can provide all of that. The question is whether Jennifer will fight the custody change. She might, Marcus admitted. But the lawyers think her position becomes much weaker when child safety is the primary concern. That evening, Emma and Sophie returned from school buzzing with excitement about their upcoming move. Their teacher had explained that they would be transitioning to home tutoring temporarily, and their classmates had promised to stay in touch through video calls and messages. Mrs. Rodriguez says California has really good weather all the time, Emma announced over dinner. And Tommy Chen says there are sea lions near San Francisco, Sophie added. Can we see the sea lions? We can definitely see the sea lions, Victoria promised. Marcus watched the family dynamics during dinner and marveled at how smoothly they were adapting to major life changes. Part of it was undoubtedly due to their experience with frequent travel and disruption, but mostly it seemed to stem from their absolute trust in Victoria and their faith that the family would remain intact regardless of external circumstances. After the girls went to bed, Helen joined Marcus and Victoria in the study for tea and planning. I've been thinking about the transition, Helen said as she poured from her favorite porcelain tea set. Emma and Sophie will adapt quickly to the new environment, but we should be prepared for some emotional reactions once the reality of the situation settles in. What kind of reactions? Marcus asked. Fear mostly, Helen replied. Right now this feels like an adventure to them, but when they fully understand that people want to hurt them because of who their mother is, they may become anxious or withdrawn. Victoria's face showed the pain that any parent would feel knowing. Their child was experiencing such concerns. How do we help them through that? Consistency, honesty, and patience, Helen said. We maintain their routines as much as possible. We answer their questions truthfully, but age-appropriately, and we give them time to process everything without pushing them to be brave or strong. Marcus thought about his own daughter and how she might react to learning that her new family came with security risks and lifestyle complications. What about Lily? She's not used to any of this. Lily will take her cues from you, Helen said. If you're confident and calm about the situation, she'll feel safe. If you're anxious and uncertain, she'll pick up on that energy. I am anxious and uncertain, Marcus admitted. Helen smiled gently. That's normal. But you're also committed to protecting all of these children, and that commitment will guide you through the uncertainty. Friday afternoon arrived with unseasonably warm weather and the news that Lily's flight from Seattle would be arriving on schedule. Marcus had barely slept the night before, nervous about introducing his daughter to the family that had become so important to him, and worried about how she would react to the dramatic changes in his life. Emma and Sophie had been practically vibrating with excitement since breakfast, asking constant questions about what Lily looked like, what she enjoyed doing, and whether she would like the surprise they had prepared for her arrival. What surprise? Marcus asked for the third time. We can't tell you, Emma said seriously. It's a secret between sisters. But she's going to love it, Sophie added with confidence. Victoria had arranged for them to meet Lily at a private terminal at LaGuardia Airport, which would allow for privacy and security while still being a memorable experience for an 8-year-old. When Lily emerged from the jet bridge, Marcus felt his chest swell with pride and love. She had grown noticeably in the month since he'd last seen her, and she carried herself with more confidence than he remembered. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore a purple sweater with jeans and bright white sneakers. "Daddy!" she called out when she saw him, dropping her backpack and running toward him. Marcus caught her in a hug that felt like coming home after a long journey. "Hi, sweetheart, I missed you so much." "I missed you too," Lily said, squeezing him tightly. "This place is so fancy. And that airplane was just for me." Marcus laughed and turned toward the family waiting nearby. Lily, I want you to meet some very special people. Victoria stepped forward, with Emma and Sophie flanking her on either side. All three of them were smiling warmly, but Marcus could see that they were also nervous about making a good first impression. This is Victoria, Marcus said. She's my boss, but she's also family. Victoria knelt down to Lily's eye level. It's wonderful to finally meet you, Lily. Your father talks about you constantly. Lily studied Victoria's face with the frank assessment that children were known for. Are you really in charge of airplanes? I am, Victoria said. Would you like to see some of them while you're here? Yes, please, Lily said politely. And these, Marcus said, gesturing to the twins, are Emma and Sophie. They're 6 years old, and they've been very excited to meet you. Emma and Sophie stepped forward together, and Marcus was struck by how formal and careful they seemed, compared to their usual boisterous energy. Hi, Lily, Emma said. We're your new sisters. We made something for you, Sophie added, pulling a wrapped package from behind her back. Lily looked at the package, then at Marcus, clearly uncertain about the protocol for accepting gifts from people she'd just met. It's okay, Marcus said gently. You can open it. Inside the wrapping was a handmade book with construction paper covers and pages filled with drawings and writing. The title, written in careful block letters, read, Everything You Need to Know About Being Our Sister. Lily flipped through the pages, which contained illustrations of their apartment building, their favorite foods, their pets in the building, and other details about their life in New York. The final page had a drawing of 4 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow with the words, Welcome to the family, written in both English and Korean. We made it ourselves, Emma said proudly. Sophie did most of the pictures, and I did most of the words. It's beautiful, Lily said, and Marcus could see that she was genuinely touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. Thank you. The ice broken, the 3 girls began chattering. Together as they walked toward the car, Marcus fell into step beside Victoria, both of them watching the interaction with relief and amazement. They're going to be fine, Victoria murmured. Look at them. Marcus watched Lily laugh at something Sophie had said while Emma pointed out features of the airport through the windows. Yeah, I think they are. The weekend passed in a blur of activities designed to help Lily feel welcome while also showing her the life she could be part of if the custody arrangement could be changed. They visited the Natural History Museum, took a boat tour around Manhattan, and spent hours in the apartment's art room where all 3 girls worked on collaborative projects. Helen proved to be particularly skilled at helping Lily feel included, while also gently educating her about the family's cultural background. She taught Lily to use chopsticks properly, showed her how to bow respectfully when meeting Korean adults, and explained some of the family traditions that Emma and Sophie took for granted. Nana Helen is the smartest person in the world, Lily announced on Saturday evening after Helen had helped her with a challenging math problem. She knows everything. She pretty much does, Emma agreed seriously. That's why we always ask her when we don't understand something. Marcus was struck by how naturally Lily adapted to the household rhythms and how quickly she bonded with Emma and Sophie. The 3 girls had completely different personalities, but they seemed to complement each other in ways that created immediate harmony. On Sunday morning, Victoria called a family meeting to discuss the move to California with Lily present. Marcus had been dreading this conversation, worried about how his daughter would react to learning about the security concerns and the need to relocate. Lily, Victoria began, we need to tell you about some changes that are happening in our family. Lily looked around the room at the serious faces surrounding her. What kind of changes? We're moving to California next week, Emma said, because of some bad people who want to hurt us. Marcus winced at Emma's direct approach, but Lily seemed to take the information in stride. Why do bad people want To hurt you? Lily asked. Because they want to make my mom do things she doesn't want to do, Sophie explained. They think if they scare us, she'll listen to them. Lily considered this explanation thoughtfully. But she won't listen to them, right? Absolutely not, Victoria said firmly, which is why we're going somewhere they can't find us. Will I be able to come with you? Lily asked, and Marcus heard hope in her voice. We're working on that, Marcus said. It's complicated because of legal things between me and your mom, but we really want you to be part of this family permanently. I want that too, Lily said simply. I like it here. Everyone is nice, and Emma and Sophie are teaching me things, and Nana Helen makes the best food ever. Victoria and Marcus exchanged glances. Lily's enthusiasm for joining the family was encouraging, but it also raised the stakes for the custody negotiation with Jennifer. What if Mom says no? Lily asked, demonstrating the kind of practical thinking that ran in Marcus's family. Then we'll keep working on it until she says yes, Victoria said. And in the meantime, you'll visit us as much as possible, and we'll visit you. Plus, we can video call every day, Emma added, and we can send you pictures of California. That afternoon, Marcus called Jennifer to discuss the custody situation. The conversation was tense and difficult, as he had expected. You want to take Lily to California? Jennifer said, her voice tight with anger. Marcus, you've been at this job for less than a month. How do I know this isn't some kind of scam or temporary situation? It's not temporary, Marcus said. And it's not a scam. I'm working for a legitimate company with a legitimate need for enhanced security measures. Security measures? What does that mean exactly? Marcus chose his words carefully. It means that my employer's family has received threats and law enforcement has recommended that they relocate temporarily for safety reasons. And you want to take my daughter into a situation where people are making threats? I want to take our daughter to a place where she'll be safer and have more opportunities than she's ever had before, Marcus said. Jennifer, I can provide things for Lily now that I never could before. The best education, travel opportunities, cultural experiences, and a family that already loves her. She has a family, Jennifer said coldly. She has me. And she'll always have you, Marcus replied. But she can have more. She can have both of us, plus people who care about her and want to give her the world. The conversation ended without resolution, but Marcus's lawyers were optimistic that they could build a compelling case for emergency custody modification based on the security situation and the opportunities available to Lily with the Chen family. Sunday evening came. Too quickly, and soon Marcus was preparing to take Lily back to the airport for her flight to Seattle. The goodbyes were tearful and prolonged, with Emma and Sophie extracting promises that Lily would call them every day, and that she would start learning Korean words from an app they had downloaded for her. I don't want to leave, Lily said, as she hugged Marcus goodbye. I want to stay here with you and my sisters. I know, sweetheart, Marcus said, his own voice thick with emotion. We want you to stay too. We're going to work as hard as we can to make that happen. Promise? I promise. As Marcus watched Lily's plane taxi away from the terminal, he felt a familiar ache of separation, but this time it was tempered by hope and determination. For the first time since his divorce, he had the resources and support to fight for his daughter, and he had a family ready to welcome her completely. Victoria placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. We're going to get her back, she said quietly. Whatever it takes. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of preparations for the move to California. Victoria's staff coordinated the logistics of relocating the entire household, including security personnel, educational materials, and enough personal belongings to make the new location feel like home. Marcus spent his time working with the legal team to expedite the custody hearing and coordinating with Agent Kim to ensure that the move would be as secure as possible. He also had several long conversations with Lily, who was becoming increasingly unhappy with the prospect of being separated from her new family. "Mom's being really weird about this," Lily reported during one of their evening phone calls. "She keeps asking me questions about Victoria and whether anyone said anything bad about her." Marcus felt a chill. What kind of questions? Like, did Victoria ever ask me to keep secrets? Or did anyone tell me not to talk to Mom about what we did? Stuff like that. What did you tell her? "The truth," Lily said, "that everyone was really nice, and no one told me to keep secrets about anything." Marcus made a note to inform the lawyers about Jennifer's questions, which suggested that she might be preparing to argue that the Chen family was somehow inappropriate or dangerous for Lily. On Thursday evening, the night before their scheduled departure for California, Victoria gathered the family for a final dinner in the New York apartment. The dining room table was set with Helen's best china, and the meal included all of Emma and Sophie's favorite dishes. "I want to say something," Victoria announced as they finished dessert. "This move is happening because of threats against our family, and I want everyone to understand that I take full responsibility for putting us in this situation." "Mum," Emma said seriously, "it's not your fault that bad people are bad." "That's right," Sophie agreed. "You didn't ask them to be mean to us." Victoria smiled at her daughter's simple wisdom. "Thank you for saying that. But I also want you to know that no matter where we live or what challenges we face, this family will always be together. We take care of each other, and we don't leave anyone behind." Marcus felt the weight of that promise and the trust that came with it. He thought about Lily, 3,000 miles away, and counting the days until she could join them permanently. "We don't leave anyone behind," he repeated, looking directly at Victoria, "no matter what it takes." Early Friday morning, Marcus stood in his empty apartment, looking out at Central Park one last time before heading to the airport. The past month had transformed his life in ways he was still trying to fully understand, and now he was about to begin another chapter in a place he'd never been, with people who had become family in record time. His phone buzzed with a text message from Lily. "Good luck in California, Daddy. I love you, and I can't wait to come home." Home. The word hit Marcus with unexpected force. Lily already thought of the Chen family as home, even though she'd spent only one weekend with them. It occurred to Marcus that home had never been about a place for any of them. It had always been about the people who chose to love and protect each other. As the private jet climbed into the morning sky over New York, Marcus looked down at the city where he had briefly found stability and happiness. But he wasn't sad to be leaving. He was flying towards something better, a future where his daughter could be safe, loved, and surrounded by people who would give her every opportunity to become whoever she was meant to be. Emma and Sophie were already asleep in the comfortable seats of the aircraft, exhausted from the excitement of the move. Victoria was working quietly on her laptop, handling business matters that couldn't wait. Helen was reading a book in Korean, occasionally glancing out the window at the landscape passing below. They looked like what they were, a family traveling together, protecting each other, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them with unity and love. Marcus closed his eyes and thought about the phone call he would make to Lily that evening, when he could tell her that they had arrived safely in California and that her room was ready whenever she could join them. Soon, he promised silently. Very soon, they would all be together in the place they could finally call home. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the wraparound porch of the California estate, watching Lily chase Emma and Sophie through the meadow behind the house. Their laughter echoed across the rolling hills, mixing with the sound of wind through the oak trees and the distant call of hawks circling overhead. The legal battle for Lily's custody had taken 4 months to resolve, but Victoria's resources and the documented security threats had ultimately convinced the court that Lily's best interests were served by living with Marcus in California. Jennifer had fought the decision initially, but when she saw how happy and thriving Lily was during extended visits, she had eventually agreed to a modified arrangement that gave Marcus primary custody while ensuring she remained an important part of Lily's life. "They're going to be exhausted by dinner," Helen observed, joining Marcus on the porch with 2 cups of tea. At 73, she had adapted to rural California, living with the same grace she brought to everything else, establishing herb gardens and befriending the local wildlife with equal enthusiasm. "Good," Marcus replied, accepting the tea gratefully. Maybe they'll actually sit still long enough to eat. The past 6 months had brought challenges none of them had anticipated, but also joys that exceeded their wildest expectations. The estate had become a true home, with each family member finding their own rhythm within the larger harmony of their shared life. Victoria had successfully restructured her business operations to require less travel, conducting most meetings through secure video conferences and delegating more responsibilities to trusted executives. When she did need to travel, the private airstrip allowed for quick departures and returns, minimizing time away from the family. The security situation had gradually improved as law enforcement agencies dismantled the criminal organization that had targeted them. Agent Kim visited monthly to provide updates and ensure their safety protocols remained effective, but the immediate threats had been neutralized through coordinated international police work. Emma and Sophie had flourished under their new tutoring arrangement, working with specialists who challenged their advanced abilities while ensuring they didn't miss the social aspects of traditional schooling. They video called their friends from New York daily and had made new friends among the children of neighboring families. Lily had integrated into the family with remarkable ease, bringing her own energy and perspective to their dynamic. She had learned basic Korean phrases, become proficient with chopsticks, and developed a special bond with Helen, who taught her to cook traditional dishes and shared stories about the family's history. "Marcus," Victoria called from the kitchen doorway, "phone call for you." Marcus walked inside to find Victoria holding the cordless phone with a smile that suggested good news. "Mr. Chen," the voice belonged to David Patterson, his primary attorney. "I have some interesting news. Jennifer has petitioned the court to formalize the adoption arrangement, allowing you and Ms. Chen to adopt Lily jointly if you choose to." Proceed." Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means that if you and Ms. Chen were to marry, Lily could be legally adopted by both of you, making her a full legal sibling to Emma and Sophie. Jennifer would retain visitation rights, but you would have complete legal authority over decisions about Lily's welfare, education, and future." Marcus looked at Victoria, who was listening intently to his side of the conversation. They had never discussed marriage, focusing instead on building their family and navigating the complex logistics of their situation. "That's unexpected," Marcus said. "We'll need to discuss it and get back to you." After hanging up, Marcus and Victoria stood in the kitchen looking at each other with a mixture of surprise and possibility. "Well," Victoria said finally, "that's quite a development." "Victoria," Marcus began, then stopped, unsure how to proceed. "Marcus," she said gently, "we've been partners in protecting these children, partners in building this family, and partners in creating a life that works for all of us. The question is whether we want to make it official." Marcus thought about everything they had been through together, from that first desperate phone call at the airport to this moment of unexpected opportunity. They had built something remarkable, together, but it had grown from crisis and necessity rather than traditional romance. "Do you think," he said slowly, "that we could be partners in love too?" Victoria's smile was soft and genuine. "I think we already are, Marcus. We just haven't named it yet." That evening, after the girls were asleep, Marcus and Victoria sat on the porch swing he had built shortly after their arrival, watching stars appear in the clear California sky. "So," Victoria said, "are we really talking about getting married?" "Are we?" Marcus replied. "I think we are," Victoria said, "and I think it's the right thing for our family." "Our family," Marcus repeated, savoring the words. "I like the sound of that." "There's just one thing," Victoria said with a mischievous tone. "We should probably ask the girls what they think." Marcus laughed. "Something tells me they're going to have opinions about this." The next morning at breakfast, Victoria and Marcus gathered Emma, Sophie and Lily around the kitchen table for what had become their traditional family meeting format. "We have something important to discuss with you three," Victoria began. "Are we moving again?" Emma asked immediately. "No more moving," Marcus assured her. "This is about our family and how we want it to be official." "Zai, what kind of official?" Sophie asked. Victoria took a deep breath. "Marcus and I are thinking about getting married, which would mean we'd all be one family legally, not just in our hearts." The three girls looked at each other, then burst into simultaneous cheers and applause. "Finally!" Lily exclaimed. "I was wondering when you two were going to figure that out." "We've been waiting forever for you to get married," Emma added. "Everyone could see you love each other." "Can we plan the wedding?" Sophie asked eagerly. "We have lots of ideas." Marcus and Victoria exchanged amused glances. "I think," Victoria said, "that planning the wedding might be exactly what you three should do." 3 months later, on a perfect September afternoon, Marcus and Victoria were married in the meadow behind their house, surrounded by family, friends, and the spectacular natural beauty of their California home. Emma, Sophie, and Lily served as joint maids of honor, wearing matching dresses they had helped design and carrying bouquets of wildflowers they had picked that morning. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt, with vows that focused on their commitment to each other and to the family they had built together. Agent Kim attended as a guest, along with Helen's friends from the local community and Victoria's executive team who had flown in from around the world. During the reception, Marcus found himself standing apart for a moment, watching his new wife dance with their 3 daughters, while Helen directed the catering staff and guests mingled on the lawn. It seemed impossible that less than a year ago, he had been a desperate, unemployed man catching a flight to Phoenix with nothing but hope and a willingness to help 2 scared little girls. "Pretty amazing how life works out," said a familiar voice behind him. Marcus turned to find Agent Kim approaching with a glass of champagne and a satisfied smile. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and discover this was all a dream," Marcus admitted. "Not a dream," Agent Kim said. "Just proof that sometimes doing the right thing for the right reasons leads to extraordinary outcomes." "Any word on the investigation?" Marcus asked. "Case closed as of last week," Agent Kim reported. "The last of the organization has been prosecuted and the threat assessment for your family has been downgraded to minimal risk." Marcus felt a weight he hadn't realized he was still carrying lift from his shoulders. "So we're really safe now?" "As safe as anyone can be in this world," Agent Kim said, "which is to say safe enough to live fully and love completely." As the evening wound down and the last guests departed, Marcus and Victoria sat on their porch swing with Emma, Sophie, and Lily curled up between them, watching the sunset paint the California hills in shades of gold and purple. "So," Lily said sleepily, "we're really all sisters now, officially?" Officially and forever, Victoria confirmed, smoothing Lily's hair. And Mr. Marcus is really our dad now? Emma asked. I've always been your dad, Marcus said. Now it's just official too. Good, Sophie mumbled, already half asleep. I like our family. Me too, Emma agreed. Me three, Lily added. Marcus looked at Victoria over the heads of their sleeping daughters and marveled at the journey that had brought them to this moment. He had begun as a stranger, offering help to two lost children in an airport, and had somehow become the father and husband he had always wanted to be but never believed he deserved. Victoria reached over and took his hand, squeezing it gently. No regrets, she whispered. Marcus looked at their three daughters, sleeping peacefully in the security of their love, and thought about all the twists and turns that had led to this perfect moment. Not a single one, he whispered back. As the stars emerged overhead and the evening breeze carried the scent of jasmine across the meadow, Marcus Chen sat with his family and knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he belonged. Sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with the simplest act of kindness, and sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as the most unexpected challenges. Their story had begun with two lost little girls and a man willing to help them find their way home. It had become something beautiful beyond imagination, a family built on love, trust, and the unshakable belief that good people taking care of each other can overcome any obstacle the world might place in their path. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.